Assembling your Model Rockets US Super Centauri model rocket kit. In the Super Centauri kit bag, you'll have two body tubes, a nose cone, a bag of small parts, a parachute kit, and your instruction set. For the sake of this video, we'll not be using the instruction set. In your kit bag, you'll have a sheet of balsa fins, a decal set, and other small parts including your motor tube, your centering rings, your thrust ring, your shock cord, two launch lugs, a coupler, a bulkhead plate, a screw eye, and a motor hook. The following parts are needed for your motor mount: the motor tube, thrust ring, two centering rings, a motor hook, and your shock cord. Take your nose cone and expand one end of your centering rings. Let's lay that side up, and then we'll expand another centering ring using the nose cone. This makes it easier for the centering ring to slide onto your tube. Do not expand your thrust ring. Take your shock cord and tie the white and yellow shock cord together with one overhand knot. Pull tight to make sure that the shock cord is secure. On one end of the yellow shock cord, tie a single knot. Then take your motor hook and insert it into the slot on the motor mount tube that's already cut, and you'll notice there are two marks for centering rings. Take your first centering ring, slide it over your motor tube and the motor hook on the bottom end of your motor tube. Then take your yellow shock cord and your other centering ring with the open end facing towards the tube. Put your shock cord through and then slide the centering ring over the tube like so. We're going to glue the centering rings onto the tube, but do not slide the centering ring all the way up between the marks just yet. Take your glue and put a bead of glue around the motor mount between the lines where the centering ring will be slid onto on both pieces, or rather both marked areas of the motor tube. Then slide one centering ring over the glue until it is between the marks. Take the second centering ring and slide it over the tube until it is between the marks. and then pull your shock cord knot up against the centering ring. Make sure it's tight, like so. Then take your tube on the front end of the tube, which is opposite side of the motor hook. Put a bead of glue around the inside, like so. Take your thrust ring and insert it in to that end of the tube and push it until it's flush with the end of the motor tube. You can push down on the table to make sure that it's slid in flush with the end of the motor tube. This is a completed motor mount assembly. Now that the motor mount is assembled, we're going to take our body tube and we're going to insert our motor mount into the body tube and glue it in. The body tube has a line marked across the length right here, which indicates where the launch lug will be glued. Also, it has 3 individual fin slots pre-cut into the tube. Take your motor mount and insert the shock cord from the thrust ring end of the motor mount and pull it through to the hook side. We do this so that we can insert the motor mount into the body tube without the shock cord getting in the way. We're going to apply a glue around the inside of the tube about 1 inch up inside the tube. Until you have glue all around the inside of the tube like so. Put it about 1 inch inside. Then we're going to insert the motor mount with the launch lug line and the motor hook lined up together. Push it in all the way until the bottom of the motor mount tube is flush with the body tube. And check the alignment to make sure the motor hook and the launch lug line are in alignment. Also, check to make sure that your individual slots are clear of glue. Now let's take and attach our launch lug and our fins to the body tube. First, attach the launch lug by putting a thin bead of glue along the length of the launch lug. And attach this where marked on the body tube with the lines marked. And line up so that the launch lug and the body tube are lined up in the same line. You can make sure of this by pushing the tube down onto the table and the launch lug and putting them both flush on the table at the same time so that they'll be in the same line. We'll set this aside for just one moment. In your balsa fin section, you have 3 individual balsa fins pre-laser cut. we're going to insert the fins individually inside the tube, like so, and glue them in. So take your first fin and apply glue along the root edge, that's this edge, then insert this inside the fin slots against the body tube and the inserted end inside against the motor mount. We'll do this for the second fin as well. And finally for the third fin. We'll check the alignment of all three fins to make sure they are 120 degrees apart while drying. This can now be set aside to dry. Take your upper body tube, your coupler, your bulkhead plate, your screw eye, and the upper body tube launch lug. Put a bead of glue around the inside of the upper body tube. Do this at the end where the launch lug line is marked. Just a little bit of glue around the inside edge. Like so. Insert your coupler, rotate it into the glue, push it into the body tube until the line on the coupler is flush with the edge. This will be halfway inserted. Take your bulkhead plate and put a drop of glue on. Insert your screw eye and screw into the glue right at the center of the bulkhead plate, like so. Put a thin bead of glue around the inside of the coupler like so, and insert your bulkhead plate. Until it is flush with the bottom of the coupler. This completes your bulkhead section. And now take your launch lug and put a thin bead of glue along the length of the launch lug. And as before on the bottom body tube, put your launch lug on the area marked on the body tube, like so. Again, you can put it on the table, make sure both are flush. And this is the completed payload section. Together with the nose cone, this is the upper body section and can be used as a payload section. Set this aside to dry. Now that our fins have had a chance to dry, we're going to apply a fillet between the joint of the body tube and the fins and the launch lug and the body tube. Take a thin bead of glue and put between the fin root and the body tube. A little goes a long ways here. And also between the launch lug and the body tube. And smooth these out with your fingers. Set this aside to dry. While our rocket fins are drying, we can assemble our parachute. Open up your parachute bag and remove the contents, which will include a folded parachute, six tape discs on a strip, and the parachute shroud lines. The parachute has instructions on the parachute how to assemble the parachute here and here. If needed, you can use those instructions, but let's just cut along the edge of the parachute where the dotted line is. On all six sides. Take your shock cord and pull the tape off. We're going to separate the shock cord into 3 equal lengths. Take 2 ends of the shock cord, put one in your opposite finger, and the other in the opposite finger of the opposite hand. And with your fingers inside the loop, pull until you have the shock cord in 3 equal lengths. Take one end and pinch and cut off all 3 shock cords to the same length while holding this end tight. String the shock cords through your fingers till you reach the other end and cut these to the same length. Now you have 3 separate shock cords of equal length. Take your tape discs, and there are 6 individual tape discs on the strip, and peel back one of the tape discs and put it on the marked areas of this parachute. Do this for all 6 discs. Take a small blunt instrument like a toothpick or a bent paper clip or a pencil or pen and punch a hole inside each center of each tape disc. Take one loop of your shroud line and pass through the tape disc and tie a double knot . Pull it tight and check that the knot is tight. Take the other end and pass it through the center of the tape disc. Tie another double knot. Pull it tight, check that it is tight. And we'll do this side by side on 2 adjacent tape discs. So we have 1 loop. We're going to do 3 of these loops. Rotate your parachute to the next tape disc. Pass your shock cord through, tie a double knot, check that it's tight, Now we have 3 separate loops, which will become a total of 6 shroud lines. Now let's fold our let's fold our parachute and so fold until you have lined up the tape discs of the parachute. Then fold again, lining up the other 2 tape discs, and fold again, lining up the final 2 tape discs, so they're all in one line straight through. While holding the parachute, pull your shroud lines through your fingers to make them all the same length. And then take on the end of the parachute, while holding it, tie one single overhand knot to keep the parachute lines all the same length. And this is a completed parachute. Now that we've assembled our parachute, our payload section, and the fillets have had a chance to tack up, we can assemble our recovery system. First, take your shock cord, the white end of your shock cord, and pass it through the bottom end of your body tube. And pull it through the front, like so. Then take your white end of the shock cord and tie it to the screw eye in your bulkhead of your payload section. Put in a double knot. Then take your shrouds of your parachute and pass it through the screw eye as well. And tie it with a double knot. Pull and check that both connections are tight. We're going to assemble the parachute into the body tube and assemble the rocket. Normally you would fold your parachute in half like this, and fold it one more time, and then again, and again. So it's about 2 or 3 times, or even 3 or 4 times the width of the body tube. And then we'll fold the length and roll up tightly. Now when we roll the shock cord lines on, instead of twisting around, roll them on. And roll it tightly to hold the parachute wrapped up. Then we'll insert into the body tube, and you see it inserts easily and can be ejected easily. Then take your shroud lines and gather them together. and push them into your bottom body tube. Place your payload section into the body tube, and we'll line up the launch lugs so they're in the same line. Later, when you put this on a launch rod, you want to make sure that these are in line, and you can adjust them to make sure that it slides easily onto the launch rod. The finished rocket can be flown as is, or can be finished by using sanding sealer to finish the fins with sanding and a coat's applied in between until the fins grain is completely sealed. The rocket can then be primed and painted, and then the decals can be applied, or the rocket can be flown as is without any finishing. We're going to prepare the rocket for flight just as it is. We need to put parachute wadding inside the bottom body tube to protect the parachute from the ejection charge. We're going to insert an engine in and an igniter, and we're also going to secure the nose cone into the payload section. Take 2 or 3 sheets of parachute wadding, depending on the type of parachute wadding you're using. You need enough parachute wadding to wad up to the diameter of the tube and be 2 to 3 times in length the width of the tube. Insert this into the tube and push in. And now we're going to fold our parachute. As before, we'll fold it in half. Then we're going to fold it a quarter, fold it an eighth, and then fold it again. Then lengthwise fold it and roll it up tightly. Take your shroud lines and roll them onto the parachute. Insert your parachute into the body tube. Then gather your shroud lines and insert them into your body tube as well. Slide your payload section on, like so. We're going to secure the nose cone into the payload section to make sure that it does not come loose during flight and get lost. So we'll take a little masking tape and we'll put about 2 layers of masking tape around. One or 2 layers, just enough so that it inserts with enough friction that it's going to stay secure during flight. Now we'll secure insert the engine in for flight. And we take our engine and we're going to check the fit. Should insert into the motor mount easily. Occasionally, depending on the engine manufacturer and the batch of the engine may be tight fit. The engine manufacturers generally have a recommended method for removing or making the engine small enough to fit in, which often includes peeling a layer of paper outside the engine. Alternately, you can sand the outside of the engine with sandpaper, but peeling the paper off is more effective. Do not peel too much paper off or you weaken the engine. Insert the engine in with the nozzle side out and lock it into place. We're going to insert an igniter in. Different engine manufacturers have different instructions for inserting the igniters. We're going to take one type of igniter and insert it in. And there's a provided igniter plug with the igniter. Which we'll push in to hold the igniter into place. This igniter has been installed so the leads on the opposite side of the motor hook, which is the opposite side of the launch lug as well. That way, when you push this onto the launch rod, the igniter leads will be away from the launch rod and easily attach the igniter clips without any interference. This rocket is packed with the parachute and the wadding and the engine and is ready to put on the launch rod and launch.